Destiny. Chapter 17.
On their way back to Lake Rookfort, Crimson couldn't stop thinking about Orion and his valiant performance. He still had a lump in his throat, yet he also felt an electrical shock run from his toes to his head, which made him run through the forest faster than ever. He felt fearful no more, only inspired. After seeing Orion rush toward the dragon, death didn't seem huge to him anymore. He could face it himself too one day, he thought. He felt his heart pump to his throat, and he would wipe the sweat from his forehead, falling to his eyes. The wind would move the trees in the forest, which seemed to dance at the rhythm of their pace. After traveling by foot for an entire day, Crimson, Mr. Napoleon, Mrs. Layla, and Icones finally reached Lake Paladin. "Quick, give me the sapphire stone," said Mr. Napoleon. "I'll get the stone from the lake." "I can do it myself," replied Crimson, somehow feeling invincible, still with Orion in his thoughts. "It will take you longer, dear," Mrs. Layla interrupted. "Us otters practically live in the water. We will get there much faster." "No, I will do it," Crimson firmly insisted. He then glanced at Icones. "Icones, what powers will I get with the red stone?" Icones quickly pulled out the book and located the red stone. "Like a volcano spitting lava, thou shalt be. The ruby stone will give its user the ability to summon fire with their hands," she responded. He then put the sapphire stone in his pocket, tied the mask to his face, puffed up his chest, and dove into the lake. "Have it your way, hero," Mr. Napoleon frowned, shaking his head. Crimson swam just as fast as he ran through the forest, or so he thought. He locked his eyes on the shining red stone at the bottom of the lake. Meanwhile, atop the lake, the rest of the crew waited. Icones was staring at the trees with eyes wide open. "Someone is here," she said, almost intuitively. All of a sudden, they heard the trees rustling at a distance. "What?" Mr. Napoleon asked. "It could just be a deer or a moose." "It seems more like a human," she replied. "How can you be so sure?" Mrs. Layla whispered. "I don't know how to explain it," Icones replied. "It's like a gut feeling, I sense it. I think I might even smell it." "We better hide," she continued. "We could be kidnapped." "Or worse, be made lunch," Mrs. Layla said. The otter couple dove into the lake to hide, and Icones climbed a tree. The rustling of trees grew louder, and now they could hear footsteps. Someone was running their way. Moments later, Icones could clearly see who it was. She was right, it was a human. Or humanish. She saw someone running towards the lake. He had yellow pale skin and cherry wine-colored hair, and was dressed in silk clothes that were colored light blue like a clear sky and khaki like a mixture of sand and clay. He was carrying a chestnut-colored bag. Before Icones could get a clear impression of him, he had reached the lake and dove into it. The ruby stone. Icones gasped as she covered her mouth with her hand and approached the lake. "Mr. Napoleon, come out." A few seconds later, Mr. Napoleon and Mrs. Layla splashed out of the water they were hiding in. "Was that the human that was coming from the trees?" Mr. Napoleon asked, gasping for air. "He dove pretty close to us." "But he didn't see us," said Mrs. Layla. "I think he did notice us, honey, but didn't seem to mind us," Mr. Napoleon suggested. "I'm not sure he was human," Icones said. "There wasn't enough time to analyze him well." "What? Who or what is he?" asked Mr. Napoleon, frowning his eyebrows. "I'm not sure," Icones whispered, looking at the lake. "But he was carrying a small bag. I fear he is after the ruby stone." "But he doesn't have the sapphire stone. No human being can breathe underwater for long without it." "Is that the only stone the book says can let you breathe underwater?" asked Layla. "Yes," she replied. "As far as I can remember, it is. But like I said, I'm not sure he is human."